In May of 1945, as the war in Europe drew to a close, two great prizes remained. The first, Berlin, was almost completely in the hands of the Red Army. The second, Berchtesgaden, the famous mountain retreat, remained to be captured. For several months, General Dwight D. Eisenhower and other Allied commanders had worried about the possible existence of an Alpine fortress in southern Germany and Austria. They were concerned that thousands of fanatic German soldiers would take the mountains, sustain themselves with supplies stored up over the course of many years, and fight a guerrilla-style war against the Allies. Fortunately, this fortress existed more in the minds of German propagandists and the nightmares of Allied leaders than in the Alps. By May, most Allied units faced a German army with very little fight left. Accordingly, Berchtesgaden changed from a strategic to a prestige objective. It was the second seat of the German government outside of Berlin. Every Allied unit in the area, whether French or American, desperately wanted to capture Berchtesgaden. The unit that did so would win for itself historical immortality as the conquerors of the crown jewel of the German Empire. Or at least that was the thinking. On the morning of May 4th, 1945, the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division moved out to take a new objective, the Bavarian mountain town of Berchtesgaden. The 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, were renowned for its role in Operation Overlord, Operation Market Garden, the liberation of the Netherlands, and its action during the Battle of the Bulge around the city of Bastogne in Belgium. They made a very long journey from northern France to southern Germany. However, the 101st wasn't the only Allied division ordered to take the town. General Leclerc's French 2nd Armored Division had orders as well and was advancing alongside the 101st. Operating in nearby Salzburg, Austria, was the US 3rd Infantry Division. Acting on their own initiative and without any orders, the 7th Infantry Regiment from the 3rd ID was also heading for Berchtesgaden. So the race was on. The 7th Infantry Regiment of the US 3rd ID got there first in the afternoon of 4th of May 1945. They took Berchtesgaden without firing a shot, while the 7th Regiment fanned out through the town. A platoon advanced up to the mountain to Obersalzberg. When they arrived at the BerghOf, they discovered the entire area was heavily damaged by a bombing raid conducted in April. Even though the buildings in the area were largely destroyed, the men discovered well-stocked pantries still intact that contained enormous amounts of liquor, wines, and canned food. The 3rd ID men drank in the ruins of BerghOf before heading back down to Berchtesgaden. The 101st Airborne arrived on the morning of the 5th of May. They may have been the last, but they were there to stay the longest. The 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, was the leading element of the division to arrive, and the officers and men began by securing the town. Colonel Robert F. Sink, commander of the 506th, met with the commanding officer of the 7th Infantry Regiment, 3rd ID, and informed him that the 101st was relieving them. 3rd ID men were ordered back to their area of operations in Salzburg, Austria. Major Richard Winters of the 2nd Battalion, 506th Regiment would later recall making the discovery of Hermann Göring's 10,000 bottle wine cellar. The 2nd Battalion tried to drink those 10,000 bottles and probably came pretty close to accomplishing that feat. While not the only source of alcohol in town, there were wine cellars everywhere. Göring's stash was the highest quality booze that the paratroopers got their hands on. On 7th of May, the day Germany signed the surrender agreement, the contents of Göring's wine cellar were distributed to the companies of the 2nd Battalion, 1 truckload each. The party that ensued was legendary. Drunk paratroopers zipped around the town in Mercedes luxury cars, fired off weapons, and celebrated their survival of the war. The next day, the party was still going strong when 2nd Battalion received orders to move to Zell am See, Austria, about 30 miles away for occupation duty. When the convoy pulled out of Berchtesgaden that night, the men were singing and still drinking in the back of those trucks. I have been trying to come up with a monetary value for 2nd Battalion's bar tab in May 1945, but without a complete inventory I don't think it's possible. Suffice to say, it would have been extremely high. American elite soldiers who had just defeated Germany in the prime of their youth deserved this $1 million hangover.